Hello. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Behind the Scenes. This is episode number 4. And this one is a really special one. I mean, all of the episodes have been special, but this one here is truly in my heart because this is the alum edition. So I've invited back 3 alum from the digital media program here at FSCJ to talk about their experiences, how it was in the program, and that post-grad transition into, being a big kid or growing up into adulthood and stepping into that career field. So I am so excited to chat with you all. We have Nate Flores, Devin Pierce, and Kenneth Morrison. So thank you all for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I hope y'all doing well today. And so I just want to start off with, I'm going to start off easy with a general question, and I want this to go out to the entire group. What initially brought you to the digital media program in the first place? So I think I want to start off with Nate, and then maybe we go to Devin and then Kenneth.
Okay, well, that is a fantastic question. Thank you for having me here, Marq. Honestly, I came to FSCJ because of the flexibility that it offered. Being a senior student, I needed something that was going to work on my schedule. So I was a full-time employee, full-time husband, and I don't have the same hours as a normal student has. So when I did my research and I found out that FSCJ was super flexible, offering classes, it just worked out perfect for me.
Good deal, good deal. And then Devin, how about you?
Well, mine is similar to Nate's. Actually, my husband got a job here in Jacksonville. We moved from Pensacola, Florida. He was working in the Clay County, and one of my agreements is, okay, if I move, I got to go back and get my bachelor's degree because I already had gotten my AA degree before we had gotten married. And so I was looking between the colleges, and I saw FSCJ. And I love the fact that it had digital media because I had digital media in my background, but I didn't have the degree for it. And I loved how it was hands-on. And so I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to sign up. The flexibility, full-time mom. So most of the time I had to do night classes. And so having that flexibility as well as just the professors and the individuals that I met at FSCJ, they were, welcoming. And that really helped. And so it was just set in stone. That's how it began.
Perfect. And so Kenneth, can you tell me or share some insight as to what brought you to the digital media program?
The digital media program at FSCJ. Well, I went to the digital media stuff at FSCJ twice. Once before my BA when I was getting my AA, and then afterwards. Talked about flexibility. That's a big reason. My first time was it's going to be kind of a little blunt, but it was there and it was cheaper than UNF. Which, hey,
I respect it. it.
Like for me, I came out of a school program where it was like a high school program where it was good, but like I did feel like there was a lot of gaps in a way, kind of especially in terms of like a lot of the digital stuff and some of the art stuff. So was kind of talking with my family, and it's like, hey, if you go to UNF, you might get eaten alive. Why not go to FSCJ instead? And then afterwards, my second time around, still had gaps because of my weird background on that. So I'm like, hey, what can I do? FSCJ has all these opportunities, all these classes. Might as well go back and get a cert.
Got you. And so I think you actually bring up something really interesting that segues perfectly into the next question. So I actually want you to start this off. Do you come from a family of like artists, designers, creatives? Like is that something that you grew up with, or are you one of the first ones in your family to pursue anything with art and design and anything with creativity?
It's going to be a yes and a no, because I have like both my mom and dad, more so my dad, are really into music, and my dad went into the military, and if he didn't go into the military, he would have tried to be a rock star. But they kind of set that aside for a career. Again, military, my mom went into teaching and also like spent a couple of years off to raise my sister and I, because dad was in the military. It was a lot. I had some like an uncle and a grandma who were very creative, but again, that was kind of suppressed in a way. So for me, going and being creative, I was like one of the first ones to do it. And I feel like in my generation, there's like a cousin who's doing tattoos up in Tennessee. And like that was a whole problem with the family for a bit. So it's not always 100% supported, but like by the environment, because my family really did support me. But like it was a struggle.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And so I want to touch on that in a bit. So I want to go back around. Devin, in your case, do you come from a family of creatives, or what's your background?
I would say my family is pretty creative. But my background is let's say my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She came home once my brothers were born. And so when she was at home, she had the cookie candy business. So we were constantly baking. So that's creativity. And then she went back to get her hair degree, cosmetology degree, which to me, once again, creativity. I remember distinctly in elementary school when she was volunteering, she used to do portraits. And so those were things that I remember growing up. I had a cousin who was going to go into digital design, but last minute she decided to do cosmetology, and she loves to do colors and drawing, but she still uses her skills. And like the rest of me and my cousins, we took art classes in history. I think we decided to change. I mean, my background, honestly, originally I wasn't going into digital media in the beginning. I wanted to be an OBGYN, but I realized quickly blood did not work for me. And so I just remember always, growing up with family, we would do family videos, taking pictures, going through the family albums. And so I was like, man, this looks like something I would like to do. And then I came across the digital media program that was with my church. And that's how I got into digital media, by videos and interviewing individuals. And then soon it's like, once you learn the skill, you're teaching others. And so I just started, it was like second nature. And it was something that I enjoyed doing, listening to people's stories and creating and helping them, connect, as well as helping them reach their dreams through media. So I think creativity has always been there. My dad, he worked in social work, but on the side, he was building engines. So once again, to me, I feel like that's a creativity piece, because you're putting together puzzles and you got to fix problems and be creative. So, to me, that was my family's background. So
That's so cool. And it's funny because I before teaching and even stepping into art, I want to be a meteorologist, but like you, me and science, we not really cool like that. Like, I respect science, but you stay over there, I stay over here. So yes. I totally feel where you're coming from. And so Nate, tell me more, like, do you come from a family of artists, designers, or creatives?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to get back to your whole meteorologist thing. That's interesting. But to answer your question, yeah, it's so funny. My family is full of creators. It's so interesting. But it's specifically with my generation, we've been able to make it a job with passion. I grew up with a military family. We all got settled in Georgia, where I was fortunate enough to be raised along with my cousins and my uncles and aunts. There was 21 of us all together, big family. So it was one of those things that we were always together. I had extended moms and dads that just poured into me. And each one of them, it's so interesting, each one of them had either got into some type of the creatives, but it was always more of a hobby thing. Like I had lots of cousins, uncles, and aunts that would draw, paint, photography, like all those things were within us. It's interesting too, because in my family, we have more than half of them are left-handed, which I think it correlates between being an artist. I used to be a lefty until I had an accident. I had a switch, and now I'm a righty. But yeah, it's definitely my whole family were musicians. Like I grew up with my uncles. My dad has four other brothers that would come together, and they would just play salsa music, and just one's playing the drums, another one's the trumpet. My dad's in the congas. So it was an environment where it wasn't one of the things that discouraged. But if you could make money doing it, then great. And I got into design later in life. I was actually in the medical field. And I did that for 15 years. And I finally was able to do the switch to the digital media realm. So it's been something that I've been so fortunate that I've been able to do that.
Wow, that's so interesting. Like all of your stories are so, I see the commonality of like, there's a lot of military and moving and a lot of like family oriented things, which is really good, which I think informs my, well, I don't think it does inform my next question. So Nate, I want to start off with you pursuing design. What was that support like, either when you were growing up or as you started to pursue it, transitioning from the medical field? Did you have that family support, or were there any things like, I'm not sure if I understand what you're doing? Could you share a little bit more about that?
Sure thing. So definitely the support was there. I come from a family that, if you want to do something, you work hard for it. My grandmother specifically had 5 boys. Husband left her, worked full time, went to school full time, and ended up getting her master's in English and Spanish in Puerto Rico. And she told each one of my uncles and my dad, "You have no excuse." So because of that work ethic, they poured it into my generation, which all of us were like, "Hey, if you're going to do something, you do it 100%. We're going to support you regardless of what path it is." And it's pretty great because I have cousins who didn't like to go to college. They wanted to get certified in mechanics because they love working on cars. Well, my uncle said, "Hey, if you're going to do that, be the best." And because of that, he was top of his class. When he graduated, BMW picked him up, and now he's a specialist doing what he's loved and making 6 figures easily. So the support's there. Since I started later in life, this is more of a second career for me. I had an amazing spouse that was basically encouraging me along the way where, hey, if this is something you want to do, then go for it. So it was really cool to kind of have that. So yes, I did have a good support group in my family along the way. So it worked out great.
Good deal. Good deal. And then Devin, in your case, with you also having this digital media background from your church and then gradually pursuing it, but then having so much family, having that creative spirit and spark, but going into different areas, how did you receive any support when you were like, okay, I want to go back to school for this, and in making and creating, trying to explain like, oh, this is what I do and this is why I do it? What was your support system like?
I think I had support from the beginning. Like I said, I think the biggest thing, because when I was younger, when I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I was in high school, and my mentors, John Louvren and Ian Scully and Dave Flayton and a few others, it's like they kept it, they were consistent, I can say. They gave me opportunities. They tested my abilities. They trusted me with more responsibilities. They helped open the door for me with digital media. Whereas, I started as the media director at my church. So running the videos for conferences, teaching other students. Then eventually we got to teach international students with digital media. And then like right out of college, or like when I was in college, I had the opportunity to work at a Christian television station. So that even put me more. And so my parents always supported me. I think the biggest thing I enjoyed most about being a creative was the serving part. Like, I love serving others and helping them reach their goals. And so, it did come when I had kids. I took a break for a little bit. So when we moved to Jacksonville, my husband knew me going back to school was a big thing, as well as, digital media. Is like, I've been doing it, for the longest. It's like, I want to make it official. I want to learn some more things because digital media is constantly changing. And so, he became my big support, and he's like, hey, I'll work. You focus on, finishing up school, as well as, taking care of the house things. And with our kids, my kids were a big support. Like, honestly, if you look at a lot of my artwork, my family is the center of it, and it's my gift to my family. Like, my cousin recently got married. I was able to bless her with her photos, engagement photos, as well as help her with some invitations. All those different things. And so it's like, my family has been a big support, and I just love serving them, as well as giving back for all the times and things that they have done for me to support me. So, yeah.
So awesome. Oh my goodness. And so, Kenneth, last but not least, so I know you mentioned that you had that family support. And so I'm curious, because a lot of your interests are in animation and gaming. So having almost like to maybe explain it or give context around it, I'm curious about your journey with your support systems, your friend groups, your family groups. Like, what was that support system like for you to pursue animation and game design?
It was very much a very good, like, emotional support. It's like, hey, we support, this is a good idea to do that. Initially it was like financial support, like everyone's military family here. So about the GI Bill, and my dad kind of transferred some of his benefits to me. So and also had a bunch of scholarships. A lot of the support that I had with friends and family, because kind of going back to, I don't want to say like the creative, like the only one in a way, like, because there are other creative people around me, but there was definitely a feeling that I got was, oh man, that Kenneth kid, he's gonna go places. And like, that sort of helped push me towards like the various facets of creativity and design and media and all that. Now, it kind of took me a long time to find what I wanted to do with it. And like, that kind of took a lot of back and forth with a lot of people, where it's like, I like this. It's like, that's not working. I like that. That's not working. And then I found the thing. I found animation. And by the time I did find that, it's like, hey, all that sort of financial support, community support, it's like, all right, cool. You're going to have to pursue that on your own, because the ticket we had for you is kind of punched. So you have to now support yourself. And like, kind of talk about the whole finding it later in life. Like, as a kid, I knew I was going to do something creative, but later in life, I found out what I was going to do.
I got you. That makes sense. And so, speaking of creative, now I'm curious about how you all make, because I've had the opportunity and the privilege to work with you all, teach you all in some way, shape, or form, which is this is really big for me to come back and chat with y'all. So I'm curious, Kenneth, I actually want to start with you. What's your creative process like? And have you, and this is a two-parter, have you reached a level of comfort with your process? So can you tell me a little bit about what your creative process is, and if you've reached the level of comfort with it?
A lot of my creative process is it's a very dirty process, because it's find inspiration when it happens and like get into the rhythm as quickly as you can, and then keep going until you drop. And that's not exactly healthy. And I'm trying to manage that.
I appreciate your self-honesty, or your the transparency and the self-awareness. I do appreciate that. So thank you.
Like, I had to stop yesterday, because it's like, oh man, I need to go to bed. I have this in the morning.
Well, I'm glad you got at least a little bit of sleep and caught some of those Z's. So that is good. But we talk about that a lot. And so with that, do you feel comfortable with your current creative process, or what are your thoughts?
Comfortable. I don't know. Comfort is not one of those things that I kind of really look for in a way. Again, this is a very, very self-critical stuff, but like I find when things are comfortable, I don't want to say I'm doing something wrong, but I'm missing out on something. I'm forgetting something. So like finding that comfort is just not in me. That's kind of what keeps me going forward.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I feel you on that one. I feel you on that one. So I'm gonna hop around. I'm gonna go to Nate, then Devin. So Nate, tell me more about like your creative process and if you feel comfortable with it where it currently is.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's been a process. I am I think with many creators, we get into the mindset of we're our own self-critic, and it's never good enough. Like, oh, if I could have done this just a little bit more, I would have done that a little bit more. And that was in the beginning of my the process that I had, and I had a great mentor of mine help me break that down a little bit more, as far as it's great to be a creator, but at the same time you have to be efficient, especially what I do in my field. And so he came up with this awesome 10-80-10 rule, which allowed me to basically take 10% of just inspiration, whether if I was designing a website or if I was doing illustration or some type of graphic or videography, whatever the outlet was, I gave myself at least 10% of my time to get inspired, to walk around, to see the colors, to see whatever it was to help bring the juices flowing. At that point, the 80% would kick in, and it would just be just work. Get it done. Don't worry about it being perfect and every little thing. That can come later, as long as you get the work done. And during this process of just fine tuning it, it's been so helpful, because after that 80% of just getting the content done, we can go back with that last 10% and go, okay, let me tweak it here. Let me do this. Let me do that. And it helps balance everything out, because, it's because of that, I'm very much, get lost into my work, where I can get it right at that 95% completion for, let's say, take me 2 hours, and then I'll take another 2 hours for 5% more, which made no sense whatsoever. And that was just, I had to realize I can't be that way. I have to be able to work efficiently, produce good work, but at the same time, balance out the craziness, as I like to say. So yeah, I feel like I have a really good system now, especially with what I do, as far as the 10-80-10 rule.
I'm gonna have to borrow that 10-80-10. So I'm just letting you know, if your mentor needs any residuals, we can talk about that at another time. But I love that. And so, Devin, tell me more about your creative process and if you feel comfortable with it.
Oh man, I think I'm gonna have to take that 1080 rule too. Now, Nate. My process. I think I'm in a process where I'm still trying to find it. I'm trying to find the balance. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work and create, but it's a different form of creating that I'm used to. I do more of HTML, whereas my background is more video. We're starting to do more video, but so I'm doing more of designing, I guess, verbiage and those things, which, I learned in your class. But, so I'm learning how to balance it. And sometimes my perfection, just like Nate, I critique myself hard. And like my family's like, Devin, why do you critique yourself? That's honestly, that's another reason why a lot of times I don't show my work, is because I'm a big hard critiquer. And so a lot of times after I have gotten the work done, you know, I guess right now it just feels like I'm creating and I'm getting it done because we have to get our work done very quickly. So you know how sometimes it's almost like you're just going through the process, like, okay, this is done, and it becomes almost, it feels like robotic. So like the inspiration that Kenneth was talking about, where sometimes you're playing your music and you're just getting lost and you're just creating. I'm at this place right now where I'm still trying to find that again, and so it's learning how to balance. And I remember the first behind the scene one you did when I first started FSCJ. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he was just talking about how a lot of times when you are just now starting to work, you find a job where it's going to help pay the bills. And then you create your creative job, where it's your passion, and there's those types of things. I guess that's the balance I'm starting to find. It's like, okay, this job I'm still able to create, but even with that creativity comes limitations. You might have one perspective, but you need to get the work done, and the person that you're creating for has another perspective, and you have to find that balance, and you have to realize, okay, this is their expectations. I need to give the client what they want, but okay, where can I find my balance and create the things that I want to create? And so that is where I'm trying to find the process. Um, and I don't know. Hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. It's like
Oh yeah.
that's where I'm at. I'm starting to get more videos and those things that I love, but it's really finding that balance. But I had to slow down because it's like, okay, I got this. Now I'm going to find another gig to feed this balance. But it came to a point where it's like I just had a burnout, or I had my Achilles last year had popped, and so it put me on slow, and so everything came to a stop. And so I'm in the process of trying to figure out that balance again and see how do I balance creativity and passion all at the same time.
Oh,
So
yes. No, I feel this on a deep level, on a very deep level. And I mean, I think this is the best way to transition into a bit of a gut punch question or a little bit of a soul searching question. So in finding that balance, if you've ever had those thoughts of like, okay, this isn't going to work, or maybe I should hang this up, or I'm not sure what to do, how do you work through, in your personal experience, those really tough thoughts that come into play in the midst of trying to find that balance that you're building in your life?
My biggest thing is, and I guess that will be leading eventually to your music, is for me, church was a big background, God is a big background. So sometimes I have to just take a step back and I have to play my worship music and ask God for direction, as well as I just have to take a step back. Recently, with me doing telework, sometimes it's just meeting with some of my coworkers and like, hey guys, let's just have a talk and just, find someone that can relate to your experiences and be able to talk those thoughts out, and then have a different perspective. Because, I think that's one thing I have learned since I've grown up is about there are different perspectives. And sometimes you're not able to see your own work. You're not able to see your own work because you're in it. You're in the tunnel. And sometimes you need to hear people on the outside and hear what they have to say about how your work is helping. It's crazy. I do that with my own little brother, how he works. And a lot of times, I have to remind him, okay, let's talk about our celebrations. Let's talk about the things we've accomplished, because I think as we get older, a lot of times you don't see the accomplishments because you're just in the work. You're in the tunnel. But when you're younger and you're a kid, like my kids are in elementary school, it's like your accomplishments. Hey, I passed first grade. I'm in second grade. It's like you see it constantly. Or hey, this was the project I got from the beginning. I got an A here. But when you're in the work field, a lot of times you don't see it. And so a lot of times you're like, man, I thought I would have accomplished more. So sometimes I have to get my notepad and I have to
Talk
write down,
about it.
okay, what did I accomplish? What have I accomplished? I have to show my pros and cons. And then when I've written it out and I've seen it, I was like, okay, I have to just say how I'm grateful for that. I have to be thankful for that and just be ready for the next opportunity. As well as I have to believe in those things and let go of doubt. You get what I'm saying? You have to believe and have faith in the things that you want, as well as I'm learning to write the vision and make it plain. It's like, okay, you know, what do I want to do next in my life? And so I think that's where I'm at now. It's like, what is my vision? What is my goal? And I think sometimes we always have to reset those things. But yeah, definitely talk it out. Definitely write out the things that you've accomplished and remind yourself those of the rewards and the accomplishments that you've done, you know, because we are accomplishing things. So that's what I do.
I just, I thought I had the gut punch questions. You coming through with the soul stirring answers. Woo. That was a quotable. That was a quotable. So, Nate, same question for you. Like, how do you work through those thoughts of self-doubt, those insecurities when you have your 10-80-10, but that 80 is long? Like, that is a big number. So how do you keep yourself going in the midst of that 80?
You know, it's one of those things that when I found my right career, this path of digital media, um, I knew it inside and out. Like it's it's a hard question for me to, just a little be transparent. It's a hard question for me to go through that because, you know, I spent 15 years in the medical field and it paid the bills. I thought it was, you know, like, oh, this is great. But man, let me tell you, once I made that switch to digital media and I found my true calling, man, I feel like I haven't been stuck, you know, like it's been one of those things that I'm giddy. I'm always excited. And, it's one of those things that even after I have to tell myself, like, you got to stop working, man, because you know you need to have that time and balance. So for me, it's a little bit of the opposite, where I work too much, and I just want to keep on going because I'm so excited about what I do. And you know, I joke around with my coworkers, like I haven't had the case of a Mondays or you know like dread something. Like every project that I've worked on, I just get really excited about, and it just that fuels me to just keep on going. And so being stuck, I guess one of the things, if I had to answer that question, it would honestly just go back to going back to that 10% of making sure that vision casting is there as far as getting my inspiration on a certain project. Like, what does that look like? And then, one thing that I did realize, I read a book. It's amazing, and I recommend it to everyone. It's basically called the Art of War, or I think that's what it's called, or the War of Art, or something like that.
Sun
And
Tzu?
basically, no, it's not that one. The Art of War. It's the verse. I think it talks about art and basically talks about resistance and and being able to realize what resistance does to us. And if you're able to put a label on it, if you're able to understand those feelings of doubt and insecurity, that's resistance crawling in, trying to stop you from becoming what you're supposed to be. So at those moments when I feel like I self-doubt or do anything like that, I remember that's not who I am. My calling is something greater than that. I can't allow fear to dictate my choices. So I look at it in that aspect where if I feel like I get lost or disheveled, I remember, like, first of all, I am supposed to be doing what I'm doing and I love it. And if I need to step back, I can look at what was started, and it helps me balance out as far as going forward with a project or any work that I do.
I love a good book recommendation. So that was good. That was good. And then Kenneth, you as well. Like, so if ever you ran into those like creative blocks or creative hurdles, or even had those thoughts of, you know, this isn't going to work, maybe I should give this up. If you've ever had those thoughts, how do you work through them?
So I kind of a little bit of a thing on that. In like my day to day when I'm working on an assignment or whatever, literally just kind of, I would say, call it. It's like, hey, it's not working right now. Get up, go do something. I like to cook. Go cook something. Kind of clear your head. Go for a walk. What have you. But on a macro scale, so hey, I was going to do all these other things. As a kid, and even now, I have this plate of creative aspirations that's full, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. I actually quit on a lot of stuff. Like, being completely honest, like I was going
say more.
or I tried to do like 3D art for like actual 3D modeling. I tried to do illustration. I tried to do comics. I tried to do game design. I tried to do a lot of stuff. I tried my hand at the whole streaming, YouTube Let's Play stuff. And at a certain point, I realized it wasn't for me, or I wasn't having fun, or it just wasn't clicking or something. And like, I found animation very late in my college career. I found that in senior year, and it kind of ticked me off because it's like, why is this clicking out of everything? Everything else didn't click. I don't know why. Then so late. I have to catch up. But I didn't kind of realize what that was about until a friend of mine was sharing something that a professor of his said, and it was because we were both in animation class together. And one of the things that the professor said that kind of like cut the class in half was, are you an animator or are you just a fan of animation? And I realized, hey, I like game design. I'm not a designer. I like graphic design. I'm not a graphic designer. I like music. I'm not a musician. And I kind of realized that, no, you cannot do it all. You might like it all. You might have, again, this plate of creative aspirations that's full. You're not going to eat it. You're going to have to pick a few of them, and like, I don't want to say stay in your lane, but stay in your lane, I guess. I don't know. Find what works for you, because if you try to do everything, you're going to be doing nothing.
That's moving. And I think that I'm glad that you share that, because it does get to a space of almost like self-awareness of saying, maybe this isn't for me, but that's okay. And it reminds me, Devin, of what you were mentioning, let go of doubt. And in this case, I'm thinking along the lines of, if this isn't working or this isn't for me and I'm trying to force it so much, maybe it's, I let that go, and it gets you closer to what is meant for you. Because like you said, Kenneth, in your journey, animation clicked, and animation is a doozy, but it also clicked. And then later in your journey. And so now this actually has me curious as to, and Kenneth, I want to start with you. Can you describe your journey from graduation to career, and what has that felt like for you?
So I actually recently talked about this with a current student at my graduate college, because they do a, hey, reach out to alumni. And I when I did that, it was kind of like, oh, I found this in an internship, and like, I just kind of went into it like the thing that was supposed to happen, where somebody scouts you, they pick you up, and they move you over to where you're supposed to go. That didn't happen for me because a lot of reasons. If we're talking about graduation, I graduated twice. I graduated from FSCJ, and at from UCF. Sorry. I graduated from UCF the first time with my BA, and I did not have a good enough portfolio. It just wasn't there. And again, I tried so many things. I had nothing. And then I found animation. It's like, I need to do animation. And then I came back to FSCJ for motion graphics. That's where I met you, Marq.
That is true.
Yeah. And I remember talking with you like late in class. It's like, no, I've been it and it just wasn't enough. I need more. Kind of spun my wheels there to kind of do something, and a grad school opened up a slot. I'm like, okay, I'll shoot my shot. Why not? And it's like, okay, you're accepted. And that terrified me because, oh, it's real now. Oh no, I
There
actually have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a cool thing to do. And unfortunately, I graduated into the height of the pandemic.
Yep. Yep.
Which means that things that was supposed to happen, there's nothing that's supposed to happen. It's just things that happen. But I still had to, again, spin my wheels and try other stuff. But at that point, I had a community to fall back on. I had my various alumni that I still talked with. They were all doing projects. I was doing projects with them. I found other projects. I had a graduate degree now, so I can throw that around, and that got me a job teaching with a small sort of remote teaching gig, teaching like the Adobe Suite and all. Taught some animation on the side as well. And then I lucked out and I had the right skill set for the right job. And that's where I got to where I'm at now. And I've been there for a little less than a year at this point.
Good deal. That is truly the ups and the downs. And you spoke on something I was actually going to ask in a bit, but I'll save that question. So I want to hop over to Devin. So can you describe your journey from graduation to career and what it felt like for you?
Oh, alrighty. Graduation and career. I was fortunate, I have to say. I want to say it was right after I took your 2D class. I remember that. I was going through a difficult time during that time, and then I was fortunate because I had to find an internship, and I was blessed with the opportunity to find the internship at FSCJ working for the e-learning. And from going into the e-learning internship, after that, I was fortunate to actually get some contract works with them. And so I was doing work. I was working with them while in school. And so that brought me to my graduation time. And the thing about my graduation was, I want to say my graduation semester, that was probably my most challenging semester, because that was when I had tore my Achilles. So I was off my feet, and it was also during the pandemic. That was when we could no longer go into class. And as much as a introvert I think I am, I've realized I love going in and collaborating with other creatives. Like, I don't know, it's almost like it's magic. It's like you talk to each other, and it's almost like it's just like this world of just creativity. It just spills over. And so, I was stationary. I was still working contract jobs, but then it ended. I want to say, right when I was graduating in May. And so, I was in that process, as well as applying for jobs, doors shutting, closing. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. And so, my last contract job, we were working on a project that I really wanted to be a part of. It was, matter of fact, I worked with the video crew that you're working with. It was like the American Sign Language videography project. And it's like the door closed right before I was able to finish. And I was like, hey, can I at least just volunteer? And it's like, no. And so I was like, I was crushed. And so the position opened up, which is where I'm working now with e-learning again, as a multimedia specialist. And the position opened up literally right before the project began. And it was like a God answered prayer. And then also I was able to walk. I had my scooter then, but I was still able to move around. I was like,
I know
no.
that's right.
I even walked across stage with my crutches. But, I ended up leaving my crutches to the side. I'm like, no, I'm walking across this stage without crutches. I don't want to have no support, but my family. But, I was just fortunate, I think whenever I thought, okay, this is it. It's going to be a while. It's going to take a moment. God always opened the door. I just had to learn how to be patient. And I had to learn. I hate this saying. My husband always says, trust the process. And I'm like, don't give me that. I don't want to trust the process. That's why I chose video. I can create the transitions.
Exactly.
I can shoot it from beginning to end, and I know how it's going to end. And I see the finished process. But, I've learned the more you live life is like, no, it's a process. It's a journey. And sometimes you don't see the transitions coming. You don't always see the end. But you just got to walk it out and trust it. The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything works out for you good. And it did. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, boy. We'll be here all day talking about it. And so, Nate, you as well. Can you describe your journey from graduation to career and what it felt like? Because all of y'all stepped into or graduated in some area in the pandemic. So I'm curious as what your journey was like.
Awesome. Yeah. So before I actually started with FSCJ, I realized that I had a passion in videography. So at that point, it actually started volunteering, much like Devin, as far as the church. They wanted to start doing videos, and I was like, that looks like fun. Yeah, let me try that. Helped out and opened a passion that I never knew I had, which then turned into selling some stuff, getting video equipment, and then just going 100% with it, starting my own side business because I knew I'm like, oh, this is happening. Like I'm gonna make time for this. So I just started building myself up and doing that for a few years to the point where local marketing agencies started seeing my work and they're like, oh wow, this is good. So I started doing freelance work with them and doing like everything I can get my hands on. I just learned and I went through the process where eventually after a few years of doing that, I realized that I'm like, you know what, let me go to school. I feel like this is something like just in case if I'm missing anything, I want to make sure that I have all of my stuff all together. So when I went through FSCJ, it was such a big confidence booster for me because I was like, oh, I was doing that, but that's the proper name. Oh, okay. I didn't know that was God's view of the angle shot. So digital media allowed me to expand myself because once I went through the program and I was learning videography, then other things started opening up, which I never knew I would enjoy. Photoshop, Illustrator, like all these things started opening up for me. And I had this awesome teacher that kind of helped guide me in a way where, talking about Marq here, he was definitely influential as far as that process because I never knew. Now tell him like, I'm not an artist, man. I'm not. He's like, you are. Just and so I had multiple classes with them and learning all these different things that literally opened me up to the position where I'm like, wow, yeah, this is amazing. And I was like a kid in a candy store because literally I thought I just went in for videography, but it opened up so many other doors for me that I just was like, all right, let's do this, let's have some fun. And eventually after I graduated the first time in 2018, one of the digital agencies that I was freelancing for picks me up. They, cause I tell them along my process and they're like, Nate, just come on work for us, man. So I ended up selling my side business and working with them and did that. And that kind of opened up the door for me. And, because I had this hunger, I went back to school. I was constantly taking little classes here and there. Because I opened up the door for graphic design and that's a whole other story. But yeah, to answer the question, I was already working in the field and I already had that mindset. So I knew coming in as a senior student, like, all right, I'm not playing games here. I'm paying for this. I'm not getting, any type of assistance with this. This is coming out of my own pocket. I'm going to put it in that 100% effort. And honestly, it was actually you, Mark, that told me this, where in the very beginning of one of our classes, like first week, the work that we do, treat it as like these projects. They're not just homework. You got to treat it like you're in that professional level. And it just resonated with me. So everything I always did, especially in FSEJ, I did it as my professors were my colleagues, to that level where they're telling me to do something, I'm going to do it to that point. And I've always stuck with that. And it's always been such a great reminder as far as putting in a firm foundation of that concrete of work ethic, which just outside of FSEJ, I've been doing it all over my profession, and it just makes such a big difference. So yeah, it's been a great transition.
Gee whiz. I know we've talked about that before. Because when I'm teaching, y'all know I'm a self-proclaimed professional rambler. So I say so much stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm glad you remember that, because I don't even remember what I say. Unless I practice a joke a couple of times. But I do appreciate that. And I think this is such a good, in the way that all of you described your journey and the things that you've learned and really gained. And so I'm wondering now, and Nate, I actually want to start off with you with this question. So what advice do you wish you received while you were in school that you'd like to share with current students now?
Yeah, I would kind of go back to what I just said a second ago. Honestly, the work that's given to you, you have to get the mindset of, this is not just homework. What I'm doing here is actually establishing myself in my profession. So I need to get skilled at it. There's this moment where you have to pursue it. It can't just be half-heartedly. So if you're doing something, make sure you do it 100%, because again, what you do now will reflect later on. And because of that, I can even share my own experience. Right after graduating from school, Professor Marq actually reached out to me, and because of the work ethic I put in, we were trying, I think it was a local Jacksonville art committee. I think we were trying to work on a project, but because of the work ethic I was able to put in, he saw the type of person that I am, which then after the student leaves off, and now we're colleagues, now we're working in that profession. So I would say that to any of the students, like, build a foundation that you're able to put in the work. I truly believe that, because if you're passionate about something, the amount of skill that you would put in, it's going to just help you that much more achieve what you're trying to do. So starting from the early process of when you know it, and you know that's something that you want to do, just go ahead and put in the work.
Absolutely. And so Devin, for you, what advice do you wish you got when you were in school that you would share with current students?
I'm gonna have to talk to two versions of myself, and the only reason why I have to say that is because I remember graduating high school, going right into college, and I think sometimes individuals, especially when you're coming right out of high school and college, you're just thinking about, I'm just gonna go through it. It's like you're trying to get it done real fast because you're ready to just jump in the workforce. You don't enjoy, and I have to come back, you don't enjoy the process. And so, my high school self, I was just trying to hurry up and get a job so I can work, so I can go ahead and have family life. I wasn't really focused on the process or enjoying the little small things that comes with college life, or just comes with, growing up and becoming and finding those passions that you want. So, I got married at a young age and started a family. And so after I got my A, I took a break. And so honestly, when I came to FSCJ, and I tell my kids, and I told my husband this, I was like, you know what? I'm glad I had that time in between that break, because when I came back to college, I was more focused. And, just like Nate said, it's like, when you're doing your assignments, you're doing it like this is something you want to give someone professionally. If you have that in your mindset, and it's like, all of you teachers, you professors, you taught us this, and if you're able to put forth and create great work, you can use it for your portfolio. But if you're just going through the motions and you're just trying to hurry up and get things done, and you don't pay attention to the small details. I want to say that was one of the things too you taught in our animation classes. Like, if you don't wait to the last minute and you don't procrastinate, and you taught us how, like, that's one thing I appreciate you, because you taught me how to not procrastinate, because sometimes I felt like my best creativity came with procrastination, but you taught us how to spread our projects out and get things done. So near the end, you can focus on those minor details that you be like, I think I could clean it up. Clean it up, have a clean, finished product. Whereas a lot of times when you're just going through the motions, you're just rushing. So you might see, oh, it's got a little smudge there, or, the lines could have been neater. You have those little, skips in between the videos where you forgot to close the transition, but it's all right. We'll just say it's quality. We'll just say it's character, but, enjoy the process, but make sure you're taking that time to figure out what you want to do. Don't be in a rush. I feel like if you have time, it's like, and I guess the reason why I say that is, like, you have time, enjoy it, like, enjoy college life. And I enjoyed it. I think the second time around, I was able to really just embrace and learn those things. Like everything that Nate just said is like, it really hit, as well as Kenneth in one of his questions when he just said, you're trying to just figure it out. Like, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's like, honestly, I think that's when you find the diamonds, when you make those mistakes and when you fail and you get used to it. It's like, hey, you're growing. Take it. So That's what I would tell myself.
Wonderful. And so, Kenneth, the mic is yours. What advice do you wish you received while you were in school, and that you would like to share to current students?
The advice, I kind of want to spin this in a way, because this wasn't something that I learned in school. This is something that I learned as a kid from various familial authority figures, and it was the worst advice that I was ever given, and it was drilled into my head: get it right the first time.
Talk about it.
Because, like, Devin, you're talking about, like, oh, don't be afraid to fail and all that. What have I said about my background? I was too scared to go to UNF, so I went to somewhere smaller where I can manage it. And then I went to UCF, and I didn't I crossed the finish line. I succeeded. I got it right the first time by getting my degree, but I actually didn't get a job. I didn't have something afterwards. And failure doesn't really mean what you think it means. Getting it right doesn't really mean what you think it is, in a way. But so in a way, I succeeded. I got it right, but I didn't have anything afterwards. I couldn't follow up that success. So I went back to FSCJ and I got my certificate, and I thought stuff was going to happen. I was going to have a portfolio, but I needed to do more because I didn't have enough. And then I went to grad school, and it didn't work out initially. It worked out eventually. I went to school 4 times. Like, I didn't get it right the first time. You won't.
A word. That was a word. And so, oh man, y'all are coming through. I love it. Whew. Okay. We're going to lighten up just a little bit, and then we'll wrap it on up. But oh my goodness, boy, y'all really moving my spirit right now. And so, well, I guess now I think this will be good building off of Kenneth, what you mentioned about you can't get it right the first time. So what has been thus far, what has been one of your, or a big aha moment, like, okay, this clicks, or eureka, now it makes sense. What has been one of those or two of those moments that you've had in your life at this point?
Again, that was when I found animation. Because that was just what worked. That's just what spoke to me. That's just what I liked to do. It's kind of what I was good at. Not naturally, but that's just kind of what I had the hunger for in a way. I was doing stuff as a means to an end, but this was like, no, I like this process. Talking about the process and all that. And like even just like finding that out of all the creative aspirations, out of all of that, that was a big aha moment. But what was like a second one was, I would say, when you kind of go through everything, when you find like all the different ways that works, is that like when you think of animation, you think of just, oh, it's just animation. No, there's 100 different ways to do it. There's 2D animation, there's 3D animation, and hand-keyed 3D animation, and motion capture 3D animation, and stop-mo and puppet 2D animation, and all of that. There's so much to do in just that narrow little corridor of creativity that it's like, no, there's so much you can do. You're not really missing out by just doing it.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And so, Devin, I want to hop over to you. What was what's been an aha moment throughout this entire creative and professional and life journey for you?
Aha moment. I think I'm still getting aha moments. Let's see. I think for me, I feel like with media, it's like I feel like for me, it's never been just one thing when it came to media. It's like it's constantly changing, it's constantly growing, you're constantly being changed to learn new things. And I guess I guess I used to hear a saying growing up where it's like, I've been raised once, I can't be raised again. Or, with those old sayings, or, you can't teach a old dog new tricks. And I'm like, don't believe that. I feel like if you want to be the best, you're constantly have to challenge yourself, and you're going to constantly have to learn. And so my thing is challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. Like if it's something that you really want to do, continue to grow, continue to search. Like I've gotten to the point now, it's like I just love being a student. Like, yes, sometimes I ask myself, okay, what can I learn new? And it's like pushing myself to learn, pushing myself to want to grow. So I think those are the aha moments for me. Because sometimes you just like, oh, I just want to chill and relax. But sometimes I find myself now when I can't sit down and watch a full show, because it's like I feel like I know what's gonna happen next. And my husband's like, or my kids are like, Mom, how did you know that? I'm like, you kind of just learn the system, and you kind of just learn it. And so it's like, okay, how can I now do something different and challenge myself? Like I think the biggest aha moment is like, okay, Devin, you got to challenge yourself and put something out there and see what happens. I think that's my aha moment. I'm still learning them, but I think that's my biggest thing is like, okay, challenge yourself, test the process. You have things, put it out there and see what happens, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of, the comebacks.
Yes, absolutely. And so, Nate, talk to me. What has been an aha moment in your journey thus far?
Oh man, I have many aha moments. I would have to say the first one was going back to school and realizing I found it. I found what I'm supposed to be doing, and discovering that field just was just a moment of clarity and understanding, like, this is it. Like, I finally get it. It's all in tune. You can, like, the sky was opening and you hear, oh, it was just like that for me. And it was just so great. And even during this process of now that I still get those moments where I was recently at a gala a couple weekends ago for, it was Rethreaded. Here, it's a local organization here in Jacksonville where they help people with human trafficking, and they had the big events going on, and Rethreaded is one of our clients, and I helped basically all the illustration, the graphic design work, the colors, the scheme, everything was designed by me. So going even to a gala and seeing my work framed and large, and it's one thing you see it on your screen, but to actually see it out in the wilderness, as you say, like, it was just kind of like, every time I have those moments of seeing work that I created and designed, they're all aha moments for me. And it's literally just like, wow, I did that. I was able to create something and people are using it. And it's always humbling. Like, I've been doing this for several years now, and I still have those moments of just like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. Whoa, and it's just really neat. And like, another aha moment, I'll just make this the last part, was, I mentioned earlier about that book. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And one of the quotes that I got from it, and it just really just stuck with me, it says that our job in this life is not to shape ourselves into some ideal we imagine we ought to be, but to find out who we are, to find out who we already are and become it. It's like, it's one of those things that it's already in it. It's just now discovering it and fine tuning it and becoming that. So it's just been such an awesome journey. So yeah.
Ooh, that was good. That was good. And so I can't leave y'all without the hardest question, the final question. This is truly the doozy of a question. So, Nate, since you started us off like this, I want to ask you this question, and I hope y'all are ready. I gave you time on this. So, Nate, what are 5 albums that have had a significant impact on your life?
Oh, I love this question. So let's go ahead and get started, my friend. I would have to say the first one has to be Thriller by Michael Jackson. That is one of every road trip that I go to, I have to have some type of MJ in there, whether it's Thriller, Pretty Young Thing, Billy, like, I just, growing up, I'm an 80s kid, and that was little Nate would have his little red leather jacket with all the zippers, like, yeah, I was that kid. So I would constantly listen to those records, and that one just kind of stuck with me, and it still has. So that's number one. I would say the second one has to be my first CD, which was it's called No Diggity by Blackstreet. Man, let me tell you, opening up that CD and reading all the lyrics, and I thought I had the coolest thing. It wasn't a CD player, it was a compact disc player that had 5-second anti-skip. So, you're over keeping it still so you can listen to it. And you're like, oh, this is so great. Like, that was just my jam growing up, like in those late 90s, early 2000s. It was just like, that was just that music that was inspiring me. And then even something even closer to my heart is that my family, we love all types of music. So the third one has to be Kurt Franklin. And this one, my mom, she awesome Christian woman. She always had different types of music, but this was the first time I've actually heard gospel music. And being in the late 90s, early 2000s, Kurt Franklin came out with an album called Stomp. And I was just like, oh, what is this? Okay, I like this. And then when I was able to, make my own money. I bought his second album, I believe, which is called Rebirth. Just whole other level of just like I'm jumping up and down, and yeah, I'm letting this happen because there's something in it that is just getting me all pumped up, and I just love the way that music used to make me feel. I would have to say my next album would be Mark Anthony. Of course, Hispanic family, we love our salsa music, and Mark Anthony it was just his rhythm, the styles. It just there's something about that which just was so encouraging, and I would listen to his stuff all the time. But that particular album was called Otra Nota, and that was one of his first CDs, and it was just I listened to it all the time. And my last one had to be where I was. I had a roommate that was a musician, and just introduced me to all types of music and got me into Dave Matthews Band. And there was one particular album that just really stood out for me. And it was called Big Whiskey and the Groove Grux King. And let me tell you, it was one of those that I remember listening to when it first came out for months, every day. And it was so special because that particular album, they had one of the people in their group who was a saxophonist passed away. And they used all his pre-recordings that were never used in music into this particular album. And they got so creative with it that even Dave Matthews was quoted by saying, if you haven't listened to literally any of my music, this is the album that you need to listen to. And because they had so much, and they're a passionate group, but just to see him like, this is the one you need to listen to. And it just stuck with me. And yeah, and just have a great appreciation. I believe that's 5. Dave Matthews, Marq, Blackstreet, Kurt Frank, and Michael. There you go. So those are my 5.
Ooh, that was good. That was good. Okay. So I'm actually go to Kenneth. Devin, I got to save you for last. So they're just building the hype. So Kenneth, what are 5 albums that have had a significant impact on your life?
All right. Mine might be a little, kind of like known and a little weirder, but all kind
Good.
of like
That's what we like. That's what we like.
Early mid 2000s white kid music. I'm just gonna kind of,
and that's okay. And that we celebrate all music here. Let's do that.
So we got Meteora from Linkin Park, which
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, no. Hybrid Theory came out, but it's like Meteora was like, oh no, this one that was like you're kind of waiting for it to drop. And it was just the time Linkin Park existed and continues to exist. Rip Chester. There's This Is It, or Is This It by The Strokes. Which is kind of weirdly strange because a friend of mine got that album and he also got the game Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I got that game and he got that album, and it was in the day where it's like, oh, you can burn an album onto your Xbox and you can mute the music of the game and play the song. So we were just going through Cyrodiil fighting trolls and the like, while just like last night she said, oh baby, I feel so down.
Come on, performance. I know that's right.
Oh yeah, love that. Same friend introduced me to Leviathan from Mastodon, which is a metal album about Moby Dick.
Interesting. I'm gonna add that to my Spotify. Okay.
Yeah. Honorable mention on that. There's a full string quartet version of that album. So you get like the low cellos with like the high violins instead of like the screeching, like the screams. It's great. Kind of going a little more recent. Nonagon Infinity by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that is one of the 5 albums that they released in 2017 alone. They currently have like 20 albums to their name, and they've only been around for like 7 or so years. So if you want a rabbit hole, I can't promise everything's great, but you'll find something. And going a little older, Pink Floyd's The Wall.
I like the range. I like this range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Well, lovely, lovely. And so, last but not least, Devin, what are your top 5 albums? Because you mentioned like, wait,
Oh
this is
man.
an easy question. What are your top 5 albums that have had a significant impact on your life?
So I'm gonna be honest. You know, you had me going down memory lane this past couple of days. Like I have like 3 sheets of songs and papers. So I'm gonna start off like the beginning of my life was part of mixtapes, you know, burned CDs or VHS. So my first one would have to be MC Hammer, Too Legit to Quit. My aunt had videotaped it on VHS, and we would literally play it on Saturday mornings right after Michael Jackson, Remember the Times, and we were literally trying to do Too Legit to Quit dance moves. So that, you know, it just depends on whose car, whose house I was at, you know, depend on what music really part of my life. But if I was in the car with my parents, the next song would have been Order My Steps by the GMWA Women of Worship. My aunt was in the choir, so she would sing it. And I remember being a little girl in the back seat singing with my singing eyes closed, my parents' windows open, wind blowing through my hair. I was singing Order My Steps. Hitting those high notes and everything. Now I don't know. I don't know if I would hit
I appreciate
those.
the honesty. I'm there with
Yes.
you. Cool.
Yes.
I feel you.
Next would have to be because it was my first cassette tape that I had. I had my cassette player and I would play it at night. Was the soundtrack to the original Lion King. Circle of Life. Be Prepared. Like me and my aunt, we would sing that one. She was a Scar fan, so that was definitely that. Middle school, I have to go with Nate. Kurt Franklin. It was my first CD. New Nation. Do You Want a Revolution? You know, we would have that blasting. All the kids in youth church, we would be singing it. We knew the rap. We knew everything. Let's see. What was my next one? Because I know we had, I'm down to, I want to say 2. Man. Okay. I would have to say for recent, Andy Mineo, his work in progress. Matter of fact, he also introduced me to the book. I haven't finished it, The War of Art, because he had a podcast and he talked about that. So I have the book. I have to start reading it. But it's just, I'm an overthinker. So he talks about his overthinking. Also, I Don't Need You. So it's like, you know, rejection as well as his music videos and his art detail in it is like, it's one to definitely check out. But Andy Mineo, I had that on replay. And then recently, oh, it's a hard one. So it depends on which mood I'm in. If I'm in the car by myself, it's Beyonce's Lemonade, or, you know, I have to listen to Maverick City's The Voice of God or Gyra with Elevation. But it's one of those. Or if it's watching movies, it's Moana, that soundtrack with my kids. Or honestly, lately when I'm creating, it's the Bridgerton soundtrack with the violins and the cellos. So it's like,
So
I
we
miss
had a
a
top
whole bunch.
8, top 10. So
Yes.
yours is top 5 asterisk
I'm
apparently.
sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes,
I have
couldn't.
more. If
I
you
know,
No,
but
top 5. We got to follow
I,
instructions.
I had pages. I couldn't follow instructions. I know. I was thinking it's the rules.
You know what? Y'all
It's
get
too
out of my
much.
class and don't know how to act, but it's okay. It's okay. It is all good. I love everything y'all share. And so with that, man, thank y'all so much for this conversation. This was so insightful. I've learned so much more about you all. And as always, I am rooting for you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing your voices, your experiences, your journeys, and in the space of just transparency and authenticity. So from the deepest depths of my heart, I'm so grateful, so appreciative of your time, your bandwidth, your journeys. And in the words of the late but wonderful Toni Morrison, you are your best thing. So thank y'all so much for checking out this episode of Behind the Scenes Alum Edition. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.